You need to know this. Julian Assange was arrested today in London. The WikiLeaks founder turned himself in to London authorities this morning in relation to a sex crimes investigation in Sweden. Assange is accused of having consensual but unprotected sex in that country, which is illegal. His accuser is a woman who works with an anti-Castro group funded by the CIA. Assange was denied bail today by yesterday by a British judge, which means he will stay in jail until his next hearing on December 14th. But his defense team says this is just the beginning.
We have heard the judge today say that he wishes to see the evidence himself. I think he was impressed by the fact that a number of people were prepared to stand up on behalf of Mr. Assange and prefer his innocence. In those circumstances, I think we will see another bail application, and they were but the tip of an iceberg.
Yesterday, Assange's legal defense fund, £31,000, British pounds, was frozen by a Swedish bank, affecting his chances to receive a fair trial should it come to that. A spokesperson for WikiLeaks claimed Assange's arrest will not impair the site and the release of more sensitive documents will continue. Also, the site has no mention yet or intention of dispatching the doomsday files that Assange warned would be released in case he was arrested or killed. However, should the United States succeed in having Assange extradited here for crimes still unknown, the release of those files seems highly likely. So what happens now? One organization with a particular interest in the case is the Center for Constitutional Rights. Their executive director, Vince Warren, joins me now. Vince, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Thanks for showing up in our New York studios tonight. What do you make of these charges against Assange?
Well, you know, as a human rights organization, the Center for Constitutional Rights really does believe that these charges should be taken seriously and dealt with in a professional and legal manner. The more important concern for us here in the United States at the Center for Constitutional Rights is what exactly is the United States up to. One of the things that we're very concerned about is whatever happens with Julian Assange in Europe, that the U.S. is positioning itself to extradite him here to the United States for charges that have yet to be filed. But I do think that it really does begin to spell the end of our democracy if the United States is going to pull him in and to charge him with crimes for essentially keeping this government transparent.
He was denied bail by the British. Is that standard procedure in a minor case like this? I mean, if my understanding is correct of the charges against him, basically he's charged with having had sex twice, once with a condom that burst and once with no condom.
Yeah, that's a little unusual, and I think it does give us a sense of how the UK, Sweden, and certainly the United States are going to be treating Julian Assange. Normally what happens with bail applications is that the court just needs to be assured that the person who's been accused is going to show up to court. And here I understand that Julian Assange showed up with a very big support team, with people that were putting up money surety to assure that he would come back to court at risk of losing their money. He, of course, and his lawyers said that he would be back in the courtroom, and the court decided to deny bail so that there was no way that he could bail himself out. You know, Tom, what's really interesting here is that I think the media has talked about his case as if he has been a fugitive, as if he has been underground, when in fact I know that his lawyers have offered over a period of several weeks to make him available to be interviewed on these charges. And let's also remember that the warrant that has been issued is not to put him in jail to face charges. The warrant is actually to interrogate him, and there's simply no reason why that couldn't have happened without having put him in jail and denied him bail.
Or for that matter, couldn't Sweden have sent an interrogator to the UK and they could have just sat down with him and asked their questions?
And that absolutely could have happened, and frankly I think should have happened, given all that's been going on here and the real concern that the United States is going to be manipulating this process for its own purpose.
Isn't that it, Vince, that really what it looks like is happening is that the UK doesn't want to extradite him to the US, but Sweden is perfectly willing to. If they can get him, then we can get him. And if that's the case, today Nigeria filed charges against Dick Cheney for bribery, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. And we, for 35 years now, we've had a mutual extradition treaty with Nigeria. You know, are we going to arrest Dick Cheney and hand him over to the Nigerians?
Well, you know, we probably should, but we definitely won't. And I think that that is exactly what the concern here is, Tom, that the United States is really gaming this system to bring him in and to deal with to basically prosecute him for things that the New York Times is already doing and other newspapers are doing around the world. And I think the really horrible part is that Eric Holder and the Attorney General are doing a lot of saber rattling around this, but this is the same Attorney General that refused to prosecute ample evidence of torture with respect to Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, and other places. Yet they seem very fit to prosecute the very person and the very group that made that torture come to light. And that doesn't make sense at all.
Vince, what is the Center for Constitutional Rights' interest in the WikiLeaks case?
Well, we're a human rights organization. We've filed the first cases in Guantanamo. We've filed cases against the Bush administration and the Obama administration relating to state secrets. We are recently on the case that's doing the Awlaki case, Anwar Awlaki, the case of the men in Yemen. What our interest is that we don't want to see the very important twin goals of transparency and accountability, which has been lacking both in the last administration and in this current one, fall prey to the hysteria and rhetoric of the right wing in this country. We want to see justice done, and justice is not done by silencing the very people that are keeping our government open.
Do you find it more than coincidental that these charges got serious, Interpol issued a warrant, and American international companies stopped hosting and handling funds for WikiLeaks, all within a day or two of Assange saying that his next document dump would be 50 gigabytes of data from Bank of America and other American financial institutions?
If only we had WikiLeaks around to do a document dump of what's going on behind the scenes right now with the government and the corporations, I think people would be shocked but not surprised. It is very clear to me that the government, our government, is doing everything in its power to silence embarrassing secrets and, frankly, evidence of wrongdoing that is clearly going to be coming out one way or the other. And I understand that WikiLeaks is going to do its best to get those documents out anyway, which they should.
But some of these bankers are billionaires themselves, and if they're in a position where WikiLeaks could release something that might cause them to end up in jail, is there any evidence that these billionaire bankers are playing in this game, that they're pushing this process?
Well, I haven't seen anything specifically about that, but I don't doubt it at all. It's one of these situations where you have that much information, people with power get very nervous, and what they do is they use their power to keep that information from coming out. And they're clearly doing whatever they can, legally or illegally, with the government or outside of the government, to keep that information a secret, not because he's committed a crime, but simply because they don't want to be embarrassed on the world stage.
Vince Warren with the Center for Constitutional Rights. Vince, thanks so much.
Thanks very much for having me.
As Julian Assange was taken into custody this morning, an op-ed was published in The Australian, written by his own hand. In it, Assange quotes an unlikely person, Rupert Murdoch. He says, quote, "In 1958, a young Rupert Murdoch, then owner and editor of Adelaide's The News, wrote, 'In the race between secrecy and truth, it seems inevitable that truth will always win.' End of quote. Unfortunately, somewhere in the intervening 50 years, Rupert Murdoch lost his way over at Fox News, and his colleagues at other cable outlets appear to have as well. Secrecy won the race. And because of it, WikiLeaks is more important now than ever.